Hey, it's JC1424 once again with another album review. Today we're going to be talking about the new album from A Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant. Now, this is their 2018 album, 14 years after their previous album, which was released in 2004, eMOTIVe. I got into A Perfect Circle because my dad used to listen to them a lot, alongside other works by the lead singer Maynard, which was, of course, Tool. Now, Tool is even more famous than A Perfect Circle, but whenever it was discovered that these guys were going to be releasing more music last year, and they finally announced the album, it was a big deal in the entire rock community. There are some people who haven't gotten to reviewing this album yet, but it's definitely one that you don't want to miss, alongside stuff like 3 Days Grace and Breaking Benjamin, Five Finger Death Punch. We get a lot of music from them very often, but this band is an alternative rock band that does have a more mature and artistic style of writing, especially in lyrical content, but they experiment without going straight to the frickin' mainstream. Although I could probably say in a couple tracks on this album that they do try a few mainstream sounds in the artificial keyboard. Let's go ahead and start talking about the first track on the album, which is Eat the Elephant, the title track. At the same time, it is a fully fledged song. I would have to say that it feels like an intro just because it focuses on the main purpose of the album entirely. And this one starts it off with a sarcastic way of saying, go into a situation without, actually thinking about it in the heat of the moment, just on instinct. And it kind of says, take the bite, take the swing, take the step, just go all in. And I really do enjoy that. The lyrical expression with this song right here, if you think about it, Eat the Elephant in the room, that's kind of what it's talking about. Now, I will say that this is actually not a hard-rocking track to start off the album and just aggressive, a bunch of adrenaline like you would expect with many other rock bands. It's actually smooth jazz. It's got the lovely piano and some percussion to just keep it going. The vocals are just flawless with the way they drag out the lyrics and kind of a length to them. At the same time, it's kind of light on progression. It doesn't have a really high point, but it doesn't have a really low point either. It just kind of has a flat line. And overall, it's a really decent start to the album. Where to begin? Elude me. Rooting ever deeper. Track 2 on this album was the second single, Disillusioned. It came out on January 1st, 2018, which is New Year's Day. I've got to say, this is my favorite song on the album by far, and still one of my favorite songs in 2018. I think it's got a pretty solid spot in my top 10 songs in 2018, even though we're not even halfway through the year yet. It has a pretty mesmerizing meaning behind it of how people will miss simple yet vital experiences, and for me personally, I think about the transitions from winter to spring and things coming back to life. At the same time, you can miss stuff like that just because of being at work or in school. Maybe you're on your phones, and Maynard, him personally, he has an issue with people being on their phones at his concerts or while he's on tour. They should be seeing it with their eyes, not seeing it from a camera. And that's not exactly why they're doing it in some cases, like, vloggers, but at the same time, I would just have the phone up and watch it just like that for some parts and not even bother videoing stuff whenever it comes to big events. Now, at the same time, musically, this really is amazing because of the guitar and percussion parts that really progress until you finally get to these relaxing ballad portions of the song where it's kind of got this vocal effect that kind of sucks the lyrics in with this reversed echo that I find really amazing. And then eventually it comes to a really, really calm part with just the piano, and then it gets back into the aggressive parts again. And the second time around, whenever you get to the ballad portion of the song, it's got these drums that are just like a little bit added in, and it's just a sudden end to the song, and it really does set the mood for the album. I love this song more than any other on the album just because of how much progression and how many ups and downs it has. The Contrarian is track 3 on this album, and I have to say that it has the most beautiful instrumentation all throughout in comparison to everything else here, just because of the way it uses the harp, trombone, chimes. We do get some guitar, and it takes a while to get there, but whenever it does, Maynard has made you drool for it, and it finally comes in powerfully. It's really strong, and it's such a satisfying experience. Just like any other time you get guitar in this album, because he kind of makes you drool for it everywhere. But at the same time, the song has this mysterious vibe to it because it's about falling under the spell of someone who's trying to use you and lie to you to just make you believe they're a good person. It's kind of a politically valuable purpose. They all lie. All politicians lie to you. Whether you believe it or not, they all lie in some way or another.
Hello, hello, he lied.
The lone lead single to this album was released in late 2017, and that was The Doomed. Here it's track 4. You cannot go wrong with any of the musicality with this song in specific just because of its variety and similarities to The Contrarian, how it ties into that one. Here it's got bells, trombone again. It kind of uses amp overload as an instrument just to create some suspense. It wouldn't surprise me at this rate if A Perfect Circle were to be using mayonnaise as an instrument, but yeah, you know where I got that pun from. Now that I'm back on topic, drums and guitar are a great factor in this one because they produce this false build-up until you get to this pivotal ending towards the song where it's finally an actual climax, and all that intensity you had before where it would keep stopping actually amounts to something just amazing here. Now, the meaning behind this one is kind of about some faithless followers to an unreliable disciple who's telling them that he no longer knows exactly where he's going and he's kind of given up. So they had faith in him for so long, and whenever it comes down to themselves, they're faithless just because they don't even believe in themselves. They give up with him practically. Now, you can really compare that to The Contrarian. The fifth track on this album was another one of the singles. I think it was the last one that came out before the album's release, and that was So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. As silly as a song title that might seem, it's actually tied into the name of a book that I don't remember the author of, but I did look it up whenever the song first came out. Now, whenever this song first came out, it got some extremely invalid criticisms. I feel like these people were just complaining about the fact it has this positive vibe to it. Happiness isn't a bad thing. I mean, we have all these other rock songs with angsty and aggressive feelings to them, and it's basically just because it's written in a major key, kind of like a song by Green Day, because Green Day has a lot of songs that are written in a major key, if you ask me. And this one, it's very different from a Green Day song because it's got a completely different meaning to it. This is Maynard's farewell to many recently deceased dedicated artists such as Gene Wilder, David Bowie, Muhammad Ali, and especially the woman that played as Leia in Star Wars. He says Leia in the song, but I don't remember the name of that woman because I'm not even that big of a Star Wars fan, but I knew that character very well at the same time. Now, it also turns a cheek to some of the pointless things that some people will go caring about in life because its main focus is, these people that dedicate their lives to art while other people just dedicate it to themselves and visual things such as plastic surgery, apparently. But man, it's got a strong focus on the lyrical content, and I don't feel like it focuses enough on the musicality, but that's the only thing I have against this one. It's still pretty darn good for a song. It's one of my favorites on the album because it was a good choice for a single, but at the same time, they should have put some more focus into progression on the musical part. The sixth track on this album is that tough bitch of a single that the radio has been clinging to ever since it came out, Talk Talk. It's very memorable just because of the meaning behind it, where Maynard is singing about how there are people out there that will just flat out use their religion to make themselves seem innocent, and then they'll go preaching that same religion whenever, meanwhile, they just don't have simple decency to not go doing bad things just so that they can ask for forgiveness and say, I'll get away with it. All I have to do is ask God for forgiveness. So, yeah, I can relate to that song. I know a lot of people that just work by that. But otherwise, I love the drums and guitar in the song just because they hit it pretty darn hard and staccato at some points, especially in the chorus. So it really brings out the vocals whenever you get to the chorus, and it's very memorable. Now, the piano in there is what I really like a lot because it helps carry some of the attitude here. Flying Down the River is the 7th track on this album, and this just had to be a B-side at some point because I looked on YouTube, and in 2013 this song was uploaded in a different version with maybe a few changes here and there. Like, it had a bit of a faster pace, and towards the end of the song there was some extra percussion, but overall there weren't that many changes. But I like this one more, to be honest. But still, it's one of my mediocre songs on the album. It's one that I put like right in the middle. And this song is basically Maynard's way of connecting with Jesus and singing about how he portrays him in his mind and whatnot. But whenever he's singing, he kind of talks about how in his darkest times he'll be finding faith in himself or faith in Jesus, and just, you know, putting two and together. Kind of internal conflicts of how he sees him. He just doesn't know how to feel sometimes. Now, the reason why the lyrical content can really bring you in here is because of the way the vocals make it really passionate at some points, and meanwhile you've got the symphony and the rock kind of combining in a very basic form. And then eventually it builds up to these guitar triplets that draw out a little too long, in my opinion, because it just seems out of place after a while. But that's after those guitar triplets in the original version where they had that percussion coming in. I saw some people frustrated because that wasn't there, but I like it more because the vocals are more fresh, and overall the song, it's more melodic just because of the way it's slowed down just the slightest bit. Track 8 on the album is Delicious. It's not pronounced delicious. He sings delicious whenever he gets that lyric in the song. So I'm basically just trying to connect with him artistically by saying it like that. But anyhow, this is one of the songs in this album that definitely stands out, much like So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, just because they're trying something different. A Perfect Circle has never tried writing a song like this. This one kind of reminds me of something by Collective Soul, or maybe even Soundgarden. It's got this violin, acoustic guitar, and the main guitar in here, that main guitar riff, is kind of got this grungy-esque vibe to it. And whenever you go through the verses, it's kind of this up and down wavy feeling, and it kicks it up a notch in the chorus with the way it explores the key signature. It just goes up and down through the scale. So it's a very explorative song, and then whenever you get to the outro, the guitar is just great, and the drums are just so powerful. It's a really anthemic outro, to be honest. And then after this, we have ourselves a intermissions part. So this is where it really hits the hardest point on the album. It's like the center of the album, even though it's a bit later in. But this song also does play on the theme of the album with the song meaning, because it's about this character that's kind of arrogant, and they're so arrogant that it seems as if they're glutinous. So you can think about how the title of the album is Eat the Elephant, and well, that analogy here and there, it really does connect with the whole eating thing and glutinous. It's arrogance to the point where it seems like they're just so full of themselves.
Not unlike you to needlessly hoist away our smug grenade, arrogant and insolent. You don't give a damn, collateral be damned.
I suppose at this point in the video I should just take the time to talk about tracks 9 and 10 in the same clip, because as I just mentioned, track 9 is actually an intermission, and that is titled DLB. It is pretty much all piano written on a bit of a chromatic scale, I suppose, because it starts at the top, and then without skipping any steps, it does just keep going downward. At the same time, it's got this left pedal thing where all the notes are drawn out, and it takes forever for them to die off, which creates this really nice aura around your head if you have headphones on, or maybe just around your speakers completely, because it really does create bass as you go through all the different notes. And another thing I should mention is it has this live setting feeling to it, because it sounds as if it was just raw. They recorded it and they were done with that. But all in all, DLB is a great intermission track, and I think it was very necessary for this album. The reason why I should say that much is because track 10 is Hourglass, and it's industrial metal. That's the only thing I can say about its genre, is that it's industrial metal. I don't know how we went from grunge to industrial metal within just 2 minutes, but without that intermission DLB, this would have been just throwing us off completely. But I don't think it's that different with other A Perfect Circle songs, because I think they've had a few vibes of industrial metal here and there, but it's just grunge to them out quite a bit, and they did it very well. But at this part, in the first 2 seconds of Hourglass, I don't really dig it, even though I do love the experimenting. It kind of reminds me of 1,000 Suns by Linkin Park from 2009. It's just, I don't really dig the sound effects from the soundboard that they chose. Now, lyrically, it's spot on. I have to say that it does remind me a bit of Run For Your Life by Powerman 5000, which was the last song of their album released in 2017. Though I know people would expect Powerman 5000 to be a lack in lyrical effort there to call that song trash possibly, but because of the soundboard thing with me not really keeping it together, it does remind me of just the meaning and how, your life is almost over possibly. Don't go wasting your time, the clock is ticking, etc.
Red flag red, all the sentinels are dead. The Chokio kitty swallow rose and canary.
The second to last song on this album is titled Feathers, and my apologies, but this is just one song that I can't say much about on this album. It is by far my least favorite, and that's an interesting thing to say because Disillusioned was one of my favorite songs of the year and is by far my favorite song on the album. And we get to this one, and it just lacks so much musical creativity. Like, it feels really laid back in the vocal effort, and the musical content is just, it doesn't really go anywhere. It stays way down at the bottom and stable all around there. It reminds me of maybe a filler track possibly by 10 Years. And for those who don't know who 10 Years are, they are a band that were inspired by works done by Maynard with A Perfect Circle and Tool. And I actually love 10 Years. I love a lot of music by them, but at the same time, it feels like one of them songs. Now, the lyrical effort, I never got around to actually figuring out what it was about in specific because I was just so distracted by the amount of boredom I was getting from listening to the song. I listened to it 3 times in a row, trying to listen to the lyrics, but it was just, it felt like it intended to be background music. And with that, I think I'll give you my score of this one was a 6 out of 10. It was boring me out of my mind. Like, I'm sorry, but I had to just leave this one behind, honestly.
Share our mending all the same.
Track 12 is the final song on the album, and that is Get the Lead Out. This one basically just serves as an outro piece, though it does have some lyrical content. Overall, it's just a very mainstream loop. It has kind of meshing trends together from over the years, such as DJ, really low pitch change on the vocals. It's got some artificial bass, and I like the pluck strings there. The pluck strings are a very mysterious vibe that it can give off. But like I said, it's kind of just a pastime. But overall, I like this more than Hourglass, even though Hourglass was an actual song. But for the most part, this one, I just, I can dig to it. It's not something I have to go thinking that hard about. Despite the rough ending that this album comes to, just in my opinion, to be honest, there's a lot to take in musically and artistically. There's some really great lyrical content, and the overall concept of this album is really, really good. And my final score for the 2018 album by A Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant, is an 84%. So I just want to say to you guys, if you want to listen to A Perfect Circle and their entire discography, this is definitely not one to exclude. It's just as important as all the rest, in my opinion. And I think that my dad definitely liked a lot of songs whenever we listened to it together. But now that's out of the way, I want to thank A Perfect Circle and Maynard for having done such a great job with this album. It was definitely worth anticipating whenever The Doomed came out in 2017. And it fits right in with the rest. I mean, even with those extra songs that really surprised you, the diversity and the creativity to it all, it really does fit in with the rest of A Perfect Circle's catalog. Hopefully we get something by Tool really soon. But speaking of other albums that are coming out soon, we've got an album from Shinedown on May 4th, and then we have Five Finger Death Punch in May as well. And surprise, surprise, I recently found out about this. We have an album by Hoobastank coming out. I thought that band died or something years ago. Their last album I heard was 6 years ago, and they released a new single in April, and then they have their album coming out on May 25th. Now, Heartbreak, they're not trying to go all punk vibe stuff. They're kind of being like Maroon 5, so I don't think this is going to be that great, but I might just review the new Hoobastank album. I know I'm going to listen to it. I have to, because I want to see where they're going in sound. But that's all I have to say about the new A Perfect Circle album and upcoming musical content on my channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time. That's that, and album review over.